Hey everybody, so this is the hotel problem from Dyer's review test, and I wanted to give you a walkthrough of it just to make sure that you understand what's going on and have a solid grasp of it before going into the review session. It's probably a lot of review. It's very similar to the t-shirt problem, but I just wanted to walk you through the mechanics. So just to give an overview, there is a professor who wants to organize a conference, and he has to select the proper number of hotel rooms to get for all of his guests. The general rules is he can order as many or for anywhere from 400 to 800 different rooms, and he charges guests $395 per room. And for any unsold, let's just do revenue per room. And for any unsold rooms, he has to pay a penalty of $500 per room. So the first place to start is number of the actual demand distribution. The basic data is the mean number of participants is 600. So this is your demand. And your standard deviation is 100. To show you what that looks like, we've got the demand distribution right over here, and if you can look, there's your 600 and one standard deviation, two standard deviations, one standard deviation, two standard deviations. Now, right here is your cost data, and the first thing that he wants you to do is run he wants you to run 5 different simulations for each purchase quantities, so the number of hotel rooms that have been ordered. And in order to do that, you have a cell that says risk sim table 4, 5, 6, 7, 800, and that's based on these values right here. And you'll want to set your simulations to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The alternative to doing this equation right here, risk sim table, is you can actually say equals risk sim table, and then you can actually select these cells right here. So it'll run, what is that, D3 colon to D7. Okay. And so that's your setup for the actual simulations. Then you have your equation for your normal distribution, your demand distribution. And that's right here, risk normal, 600, 100. And again, that's what we looked at over here. Your revenue is a function of your demand, which is this, and your registration cost, which is this right here. In the base case of 600, you get $158,000 in revenue. And in this situation, because your demand is greater than your supply, you have no penalty rooms that you need to pay. The output is going to be risk output of revenue minus your unfilled rooms. And there are a number of ways to go about answering that question, or about calculating that. And based on his example, what is the Excel formula that goes in B8? B8 is your demand, so that's your equals risk normal 600, 100. What Excel formula goes in D12? Oh, I forgot your, well, let's say D12 is this right here. So your cost for leftover hotel rooms, you're basically calculating if your demand is less than your number of registrants, then you take the difference of D minus R and multiply that times 500. There are a number of different ways to select that, but for simplicity's sake, that's the logic behind it. The next portion is running the simulation. So when you run the simulation, you'll actually get this kind of graph right here, and this is actually a probability distribution. So you look at this little button down here, and you want to go with relative frequency, and that will give this function right here. And this is only for simulation 1, sim 1. In order to get kind of a more full picture of what's going on here, you'll want to go to this little hashtag button down here, and you'll click select all simulations, and that will give you this graph right here. Additionally, it'll show you all of the information based on that. To kind of rehash what it looks like on the actual exam, he's going to ask you, what's your net revenue calculation? And again, that is your revenue from sold rooms minus your penalties that you pay. You're going to run the 10,000 simulations or 10,000 iterations on all of your 5. Again, here's what your output comes. And then he's going to ask for some descriptive statistics about it. And he gives you the output statistics. He's asking which simulation yields the largest median revenue. And that right here is simulation 3. And if you we can actually look back here, and you will see highest median revenue right there. And so you're looking at I apologize, sorry. So you're looking for, he asks for the highest median revenue, and that is $236,989, $236,990. So I'm off by $1 or so, but that's pretty accurate. The next is what yields the largest average revenue, and that's that 201 that we're talking about right here. And so you have Sim 3. The next question on the test, so Sim 3. Yeah, Sim 3. Largest mean value of 201, 295, 50. Again, Sim 3. Now it's asking you to construct a 95% confidence interval for the answer to question, or for your question to, or answer to the 3G. So you select Sim 3, or you just look at Sim 3 specifically, and then you calculate a standard error. And the standard error is this calculation right here, but to extrapolate it a little bit, we've got this information. So you look at Sim 3 and you pull up your standard deviation, and your standard deviation is 52,246. So I'm again like $5 off, but we'll call it close enough. And the calculation for standard error is this right here. That is standard deviation over the square root of the number of simulations that you run, which when you calculate it out goes standard deviation 52,251 divided by 100, and so carry over the 2 equals 522.50 and 51 cents. That right there is your standard error. And so again, standard error of the mean 522.51. Great. As a note on the standard error, you actually don't just say your standard error is 522.51. The proper end calculation for this is to take your standard error of 522.51, and you're calculating in both directions. So that's 1, and that's 2, that's 1, and that's 2. And then here's your 5%, and here's your 95%. And what he's looking for is what is your range, your upper and lower limit as it relates to your mean. So your mean again was 201, 295, and you add 2 standard errors, and you subtract 2 standard errors. And when you do that, you've got an interval that goes from your lower limit of, what is that, 200, 250, all the way up to 202, 340. So that is how you calculate the confidence interval of your mean, specifically once you find your standard error. The next question, which simulation has the most risk as measured by spread or dispersion in the data? Please state clearly what statistic you use to answer that question. Standard deviation is your measure of how spread out, or the variability that you have in the simulation. And if you simply just look at the map or simply look at the output data, you can see that the highest standard deviation is 87,699. So your answer for that is Sim 5. And you want to give some sort of reasonable rationale as to why that is the case. Are there any simulations in which there's at least a 1 in 20 chance or 5% chance of getting negative revenue? Explain in one sentence. Yes, there is. Way of going about doing that, you look at your data table. I have another one set up right here. It's the exact same as above. And you look at these values and you say, is there at least a 5% chance of losing money? Yes. That is in simulation 5. You have a 1% chance of losing 70,000 and a 5% chance of losing about 10,000. So that's your answer for that question. The next question is, for each simulation, what is the probability of exceeding $175,000 in revenue? Please put your answer in the following table, Sim 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're looking for this value in that same data table, and you will find here it doesn't in any case reach 175, so your answer is 0. In simulation 2, you have a 90% chance of greater than 175. In Sim 3, 75% chance. In simulation 4, you've got 50% chance. And in simulation 5, you've got a 30% chance. And oh, I was off a little bit. 55%. Oopsies, yes, that's 55. Okay. So, in one sentence, give your rationale as to how many rooms he should reserve and explain why. And that's all up to you. X number of rooms because blank. That's your answer. Do what you will with it. The next question. He negotiates with the hotel, and instead of a $500 penalty, it's a $100 penalty for an unfilled room, and he's going to ask us some questions about that. The actual following results occur, in which case I can show you what it looks like. So in your original setup, you had a 500 here. You change it over to a 100, and then you rerun all of your sims, and it will give you an output. And in this case, he's asking for the mean value. So one sentence, highest average revenue associated with simulation 4. It's now 22,876. And to explain a little more about so the logic or what is exactly happening in here, because there are more rooms empty, but the penalty for that is lower, so lower penalty. And as you increase your possible revenue for any one of the simulations by, well, I guess not by 20%, but you increase the actual potential revenue because there's a lower probability. So you have the same demand distribution when you look at it just from the chart perspective. 700. There are more opportunities for unfilled rooms, but they cost less when they go unfilled. And that is the solution to the hotel problem. It's very similar to the t-shirt problem, so if you're looking for some more kind of insights or understandings, you could actually look at my t-shirt explanation video too. But that being said, I hope you enjoy. Best of luck on the test this weekend.